Okay, welcome back to the Are You Strong show. I have another awesome guest on today. And what do you hear this guy's background? A Jersey homegrown young man from Oradell, New Jersey. And what I love is Bergen Catholic High School. And we're going to dive deep into that, and what it's like to play. Because for those who don't know, Bergen Catholic High School football is like one of the powerhouses in the country, and big time high school football. Went to Rutgers locally, thank God. And we're going to talk about what it's like to keep the homegrown guys home and playing for the local school. Got his bachelor's in labor studies, but here's what I love to talk about. This young man went on to get his master's degree at Fairleigh Dickinson in business administration. And I love to hear this story about the academics of these athletes because hear the stories of, hey, some of the athletes are not there for school. This young man's got a master's degree, which is awesome. But he's zooming in from Houston, Texas, which is great. And thanks for coming on the show, Aaron Martin. Welcome to the show, Aaron.
Jeff, super excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. You and I have chatted a little bit previously, man, and this will be great. I could talk to you forever, but I appreciate you having me today.
Well, I am happy to have you on, and I was looking at your stats at Rutgers, and what really hit me is your yards per catch was 15 yards per catch. That's a lot, you know, and
Yeah.
you don't hear too many, and you had 76 receptions, at 15 yards a pop per average. It's usually like 4 to 6, 6 to 8. You're over 15. That's really awesome. So I'm gonna pepper you with all kinds of questions, which
Sure.
is really gonna be fun. But before I do that, can you just tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I grew up in New Jersey. I was originally born in Northern California, so not too far from wine country, but moved to Jersey as a kid. Really kind of grew up there. And as you mentioned, went to Bergen Catholic High School, kind of a football powerhouse, right? So my older brother Ben, went to Bergen Catholic, so I wanted to follow in his footsteps. He then signed on to play safety at Rutgers. So when I was finishing up my junior and senior year, he was a football player at Rutgers. So when it was time for me to make a decision, I decided to go and play for Rutgers. I thought it would be a nice way for my family to kind of watch, me and my brother play all at once versus trying to split things up. But I was one of those guys that kind of grew up just a football family. We were kind of all rough and tumble. A couple of older brothers that used to beat me up a lot. So when you talk about those yards per catch, I'm a bigger wide receiver. I'm 6'4", 215, but I was a faster guy because my brothers were chasing me all around the house and all around the yard. But we just played a lot of sports growing up. We played, you name it. My mom and my dad, they put us and they supported us in really everything. It was football, basketball, track, soccer, gymnastics. I mean, you name it, we did it. And one of the things I always loved, I'm sure we'll talk about this, was just football, right? I used to
Yeah.
watch a lot of old football tapes, and then I'd go in the front yard and try to just practice what I just saw on the tapes, whether it was the Giants or whoever,
Yep.
whatever team I liked at the time. It just so happened to be the Giants, but I love the sport. I love football. Went to Rutgers, played there for 4 years, started 4 years, and those yards per catch. Really proud of that, but more proud of the guys that I met in the locker room, the coaches that helped guide my career. And then when I was done with football, like it ends for everyone, kind of transitioned to the business world, which super proud of that as well. But there's so many things from my time at Rutgers that I take with me, and it's such a transferable skill when you're a college athlete and you take it to the business world, and it really helps to shape and guide your career. And I was fortunate enough to play under two great coaches. I was recruited by Coach Shea, and I learned that sort of
Very
his
Shea.
system, West Coast offense. And then there was a regime change my sophomore year, and I played 2 years for the great Coach Schiano, who really turned that program on its head and had some great years there. So life lessons I learned from both of those guys, I'm sure we'll get into, but definitely use that in my post-athletic career, if you
Yeah,
will.
that's awesome. I asked this question, Aaron, to all the athletes on the show, and everybody's answer has always been a little different. But it's not like, and I hate to say this, I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but it's not like you went on to play D3 somewhere You went on to play at one of the big schools in the country, biggest conferences in the country. When did you know that you had that ability to play at that level? Was it, hey, third grade, people started saying, hey, you're pretty good. Is it eighth grade? Or were you one of those high school phenoms? All of a sudden, junior year, you just went nuts. When did you really realize you could play there?
Yeah, so it was, it's funny. I mean, early on, playing Pop Warner football, I would do things, and my dad, I remember my dad had a real tape recorder, and he would record me on the sidelines, and I would do things and moves on guys, and my dad would be like, he would talk to me after the game, be like, how did you know how to do that? And I was like, I don't know, it was just kind of natural. But outside of the natural ability, like I just worked at it. I
Yeah.
didn't know where it could take me, but I just knew I loved it, right? And it was one of those things that I was a very sort of progress over perfection. And so I would really sort of dive into film in high school and the weight room. We had a weight room in my basement, and we had its own separate thermostat, and I turn it up to 100 and have this big sweatsuit on, and I'd be down there for hours just trying to build my body up, and then I'd go on the street and do all my road work. And I remember our house kind of was on this hill, and I built this one of these little sleds that you would sled down in the winter. I built it with ropes, and I put weights in it. I used to pull it up the hill just to try to get faster. And this is when I'm in seventh and eighth grade. And so I knew back then I loved it. I didn't know where it would take me. Probably my sophomore year of high school is when I like I started to, my coordination and all my abilities started to catch up with me. And so that's when I kind of put on some muscle. And sophomore year, I think I got my first letter in the mail. It was from a Big East school at the time. I think it was maybe Miami or someone like that. I remember getting a letter. And then that's when it clicked that summer going into junior year. It's like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. I remember one game, I was a sophomore, I had 3 touchdowns as a wide receiver. And that was pretty good for Bergen Catholic because we ran
Yep.
an offense that wasn't receiver friendly. It was called the wing T offense. So like I could get a
Yep.
lot of double teams and stuff like that. But I knew that I had ability and I knew I loved it. And so I was just gonna work at it and see how far it took me.
So Bergen Catholic, how did you end up going there? I mean, for those who don't know, Bergen Catholic is one of the, I would say, top five, right? Football high schools in the country,
Yeah.
year in and year out, maybe top three, you know? And what was the motivation? How did you end up going there? Because obviously you could have went to your local high school and had a ridiculous career there too. But how did you end up going there?
Yeah, I got to give credit to my parents, like guiding me in certain directions. So I have older siblings and kind of a mixture of going to the local public school and going to Bergen Catholic. But I just remember my mom and dad kind of setting me down early and asking me kind of what I wanted to do. And I knew I wanted to play sports. And that was the big school at the time in the country, as you mentioned. It's always in at least the top 10. And I remember kind of going there my freshman year and just being really intimidated. Like a lot of guys that were just bigger, faster, stronger. It had like a real weight room. It had this big football field. It was the first school in New Jersey to get a turf field. So it had
Really?
I just remember this like being this big stadium, and I was like, I thought my freshman year, I was like, I'm never gonna play here. Looking back on it now, it was probably one of the best decisions I made, that and going to Rutgers. But I just remember being really intimidated at first, and
Yeah.
it just forced me to work harder. And Bergen Catholic's one of those schools where everything's competitive. Everything, the weight room to the film study to everything you practice, it was always super, super competitive. I'm gonna date myself, but back then, I used to Sunday morning. I lived in Ringwood, New Jersey. I used to drive over to Oakland to get the Star Ledger and the Bergen Record just to see what other teams that we played against did. And I always wanted to make sure we had some rivals, Don Bosco Prep, St. Joe's, a couple of good schools in the country. I always wanted to make sure that they won their games so that we play them in the playoffs. So everything in Bergen Catholic was always super competitive. You were kind of built to be this competitor. And man, Jeff, I loved it. I loved every second of it.
And I think you learn how to live in the limelight there too, right? It's because you're under the spotlight nationally, and you got to be ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Not uncommon to have newspapers, reporters interviewing you after games, after
Yeah.
big games. Not uncommon to have standing room only in your stadium, people spilling over the side of the street. I think there was a game our senior year where we played Don Bosco Prep in the playoffs. Literally thousands and thousands and thousands of people lining up. It was on all the local news. We were 1-2 in the state. Every year we played St. Joe's again, always 1-2. Those were like high pressure situations,
Yeah.
and it taught you not only to live in the spotlight, but it also taught you how to perform under that pressure.
Yeah.
And you really had to be prepared because when the lights were on, it's not time to prepare, right? It has to become second nature to you then. That's why Bergen Catholic was so successful. My 4 years there, freshman, JV, and varsity, we only lost, I think, 2 games my 4 years there on
Wow.
all levels, right? So we definitely prepared to have success and we got each other better, which was like the most
Yeah.
important thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely have fond memories of Bergen Catholic for sure.
And then all the big schools like Saint, like all the competition, a lot of these guys end up going with you to Rutgers. So the guys you played against were on the team with you.
Yeah,
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 how was
yeah.
that experience when you show up and hey, I played against you, I played against you. How did that go?
So back then, there was a thing called the Governor's Bowl. So it was New Jersey's. It was an all-star game at the end of the year. It was New Jersey's best high school football players versus New York's best
Yep.
football players. And the governors came, did the coin toss and all this kind of stuff. But I remember going into the Governor's Bowl and meeting all these guys from Bosco and St. Joe's and Ramapo and all these teams that we played. And then you start to figure out there that a lot of them are going to Rutgers. And so it just flips, right? It flips from this competitive thing to like, all right, now we're doing this together. And it started
Yeah.
really at that all-star game. And so it was great to see. We had a really high-ranked recruiting class my freshman year. We had, I think, 3 of the 4 top receivers in the state went to Rutgers. We had, some good quarterbacks, good linemen, and I played against most of those guys. It was great. I remember the St. Joe's and the Don Bosco coaching staff. They were part of the Governor's Bowl. So like versus hating all those guys, which
Yeah.
it was just like written in your DNA, you start to like understand them as like people and competitors, and you start to really like them.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the coaches from Don Bosco just kind of putting his arm around me and just kind of taking me under his wing at the Governor's Bowl, and we became like close. And it was like
Yeah.
it was one of those things where out of like this hatred and this like competitiveness comes like this deep kind of respect and this bond. Then when you go to college, you just build off that. You go to college your freshman year in the summer with this almost like this group of friends. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
I played against you for 4 years. Then we were on this all-star team, and now we're on the same team. And it was exciting to have just a group of guys that you already knew coming in. That was super helpful.
Oh, that had to be amazing. So let's talk about the recruiting process for you. Okay. Because I like to talk about that because everybody's different.
Yeah.
Some guys are like totally stressed out. Some guys are like, whatever. Can you talk about what it was like for you to be recruited, from a Bergen Catholic powerhouse high school, like you said, under the limelight, and now you're literally going down the street to play at the biggest school, in the state, and what was that whole process like? Was Rutgers your number one choice right off the bat, or the other schools competing for you? How did all that go?
Yeah, so it wasn't my number one school off the bat. Boston College was really my number one. So I took my visits as most kids do their senior year. Went to NC State. Went to a few other schools to get a look at. Richmond, oddly enough, was high on my list. The coach from Richmond actually drove down to Jersey to pick me up and then take me to Richmond. As he was driving down, I made the decision to go to Rutgers. But part of why I went to Rutgers, I took a visit to Rutgers, and when you take visits, you have like chaperones and guys from the
Yeah.
team that show you around. And my chaperone was my older brother. And I remember just him taking me around, show me the facilities. Back then Rutgers had the grease trucks. We
Yep.
got some, fat sandwiches. We hung out a little bit. And it was a Saturday night. And I remember him saying like, man, just come here. And it was Jeff, it was like that simple. It's like my older brother.
Yeah.
Obviously I admire
How
him.
do you not go there?
Yeah, and it was just like, man, just come here. He's like, mom and dad can watch us play. Just come here. And
Yeah.
I remember saying like, and I remember looking at him. We were driving in his car. He had this Jeep Grand Cherokee, and I was just like, okay, like let's do it. I told Coach Shea, and the one thing I said to Coach Shea is like, I want to make sure that academically I get like the most out of this, but I also want to make sure like I'm competing to start. And he was
Yeah.
like, absolutely, just show up, right? And I showed up. One of the things I have hanging in my office, and it was from those times, with a coach Shea. I have this hanging. It's a shirt that says 100%. And what it was my freshman year going through camp, the 2 weeks of summer camp, however long it is, and not missing a drill. Coach Shea told me I had a chance to compete for a starting position, and I didn't want to sit out. If I rolled an ankle or broke something or pulled something slightly in the summer's tough, right? You compete at a real high level. You're bashing your head against the same guys for
Yeah.
multiple practices. And I just remember not wanting to ever take any second off because I thought the guys I was competing against, that would give them a leg up, right? And so at the end of summer, I was named the starter there my freshman year, and I got this shirt that says 100% with the Rutgers logo on it. It's one of my most prized possessions, right? Because I really dug in when Coach Shea said I have a chance to be a starter. I was like, I'm not missing a minute of practice. I'm going hard all the time. It's really funny. I came in really good shape, but we had this conditioning test, right? And you do 110-yard sprints. I think you do 16 or
Yep.
17 of them. And I remember only finishing like 3 of them. Why? Because I wanted to be first and I wanted to get record time. And so I sprinted the first one, I sprinted the second one, and by the third one, I was out of gas. And all the veterans are looking at me like, this young idiot, man, you got to pace yourself, right? It's a marathon. And so
Yeah.
I had a punishment run to make sure I had to do it the next day. And, the next day I just paced myself and I did it. But
Yeah.
it was one of those things, man. I remember going into that camp. I just didn't want to miss anything. I just wanted to compete and I didn't want to miss a second. So
That's so
super,
cool.
super glad I did that.
So showing up as a freshman, when Shay said, "Hey, you'll have a chance to compete to start." I know your older brother was there, so that had to help ease the nerves a little bit, just a little bit. But what was it like when you showed up day one? You thinking, "Hey, I'm gonna get a shot to play here." Then you see all these guys that are gigantic, and some of them are 23 years old. You're 18.
Yeah.
They're like grown men. And like, what was that shock like?
In high school, every now and then you play like a really good player, right? And everyone knows, right? There's
Yeah,
levels to it. Play a really good D-back. You're like, all right, this guy's going to play in college. And I remember that first day, everyone being at that level. My first rep, I remember this like it was yesterday. I went up against Garrett Shea. He was a defensive back. We were doing
yep,
one-on-one, and he was Coach Shea's son.
yep,
And I just remember thinking I could outsmart him and just how intelligent he was and how like I couldn't get past him just by like outsmarting him or throwing some move that I would do a million times in high school. I remember in high school, because I was a bigger wide receiver, just being able to stiff arm smaller defenders. But in college, there were defensive backs that were 6 foot, 6'1",
yeah,
rangy, long, tall guys. And I just remember walking up the field in that first day, just seeing all these guys out there, and you're all in your grays and all this kind of stuff. And I just knew from the first drills, like I had to level up. Like it was like obvious, right? Like you start to, when you play on a really good high school team and you have a lot of success, you almost take it for granted, right? And
yeah,
then you go back to another level, you go to another level, and you have to just be like, all right, I gotta just grind that much harder. It definitely raises your level of competition, but it's like shocking at first. You're like, oh, these guys are just as tall, just as fast, just as strong.
yeah,
There were some like athletic freaks on that team, I remember, that just seeing them like, this is going to be a different league for sure.
yeah. Now, outside of your brother, was there any other guys on the team that like kind of took you in under their wing?
Yeah, so there was a starting wide receiver, uh, Walt. He was a starting X receiver. I think he's from Hackensack. He definitely showed me the ropes. Being in the wide receiver room showed me how to watch film, how to get treatment, how to get prepared. I remember that Walt just being one of those guys that was super kind to me. Even though we were kind of competing for the same playing time and positions, he was just, hey, here's what we do. We would do the jugs machine. He showed me how to take care of my body. I remember that it was interesting, right? Because I was this young guy, come from this big program.
Yeah,
He could have been intimidated, but it was really cool how he just kind of put his arm around me and showed me kind of the ropes and how to be a college athlete, right? And that was something that like I paid forward to the younger guys, right? Like competition breeds a lot of success. And so it didn't do him any favors to like put me down or not show me the ropes. Like he wanted to be as good as he could be. So I just remember that receivers room being really competitive, and he kind of
Yeah.
showed me the ropes. And I think he was a senior my freshman year. So that was great. Obviously, my brother, and then the coaches. The coaches were fantastic. I remember our first game was against Cal Berkeley, and the special teams coach at the time. We ended up losing the first game. It wasn't really that close. We'd flown all the way across the country from Jersey to Cal. And I remember the special teams coach coming up to me and saying, "Hey man, you're not a freshman anymore. Like this is what every week is." And and just really just kind of showing me like, "Hey, this is what competition is."
Yeah.
There was another wide receiver who was really a technical route runner by the name of Sean Carty. Sean and I we'd run routes together. We'd set up cone drills. He taught me things like footwork and getting out of breaks. It was really like when you needed something, Rutgers is really it was really like a family, especially like my
Yeah.
freshmen. Remember everyone trying to teach you and put their arm around you. And yeah, definitely Cardi, definitely Walt, definitely Coach Gibb. Those were some of the people that kind of helped shepherd me through.
That's awesome. So, what was it like for your parents to see you and your brother playing at that level at the same time together?
Yeah, so probably buried the lead, but I'll give you a little bit. So my father, my parents were both really good athletes. My father played football in college. Then he played 14 years with the New York Giants. My mother, amateur tennis player, very good athlete. But there are two things you can't get my mom to do now. You can't get her to cook a Thanksgiving meal, and you can't get her to go sit at a football game. She's seen more football than anybody should, but for my parents, it was one of those things that looking back on it now, not only were they at every home game, Jeff, they were at all the away games.
That's
And
awesome.
playing in the Big East at the time, so you play, far south is Miami. We played at Cal Berkeley, they were there. Obviously we played, teams like West Virginia, et cetera. They were that at all the games. And they were typically the first people that I saw after the game getting on the bus. They were always waiting. First people I saw. My parents were super, super supportive of both me and my brother.
Yeah.
And, you think a lot about like what it takes to play football at a high level, where it's Division 1 or high level, high school or pros, whatever. You need a good support system. You can't do it
Yeah.
without support system. My father, having gone through it from the college and pro side, and then my mom just being that supportive mom. My goodness, I can't tell you. I've gotten a couple of broken bones, some surgeries on my back, some other surgeries here and there. And just growing up, and my mom always taking me to the hospital and being there when I had surgeries and stuff like that. Just those kind of memories of how
Yeah.
supportive parents are. I'm telling you, it makes all the difference in the world when you're trying to do something really difficult.
When your parents believe in you, you start to believe in yourself,
100%.
you know? Yeah, which that's awesome. So you said broken bones. What's the most painful injury you've had?
So I've had a couple. I played receiver, so I've got some broken fingers. I've got some. My back was really painful. I did some damage to the disc in my back. I used to have to get it drained in between games.
Ugh.
I had a high ankle sprain that was really painful. I'm getting injections into that. But I would say the most disappointing one that kept me out the longest was I had to tear my hamstring, and it wasn't the physical pain. It kept me out, I think, 3 weeks. It was missing time and missing games. It was my senior year.
Yeah.
I was in the best shape of my life. It was Coach Schiano's year. I mean, it was go time. We were ready to go, man. We were going to crush the Big East. I was cooking people in practice on a regular, I mean, yards behind people. And I tore my hamstring in summer, late in summer. I ended up missing, I think, the first 3 games. And just the mental weight of it, right? Like having to go through rehab, having
Ugh.
to sit on the sideline in practice, not travel with the team. I remember one day I was walking around the Hale Center, and my wide receiver coach, guy by the name of Daryl Hazel, just came up to me and he's like, "Hey man, how you doing mentally?" Like he knew I was down, like my shoulders were down, like so just
Yeah.
that mental of like the physical pain of any injury or any surgery, it sucks, but like you get over that. It's the mental pain of not being able to play or not being with your teams.
Yeah.
That's the worst part of it.
Can you talk about that, Aaron? Because that's so important because there's guys and girls in any sport, right, that have never felt an injury yet. And
Yeah.
hopefully they never do. But what's it like? We kind of just mapped it out and you said it was bad, but take us through what it's like to have that hamstring. You're a senior, right? This is like everybody's senior year is like the year, right? And you're sitting on your couch watching Rutgers play on TV because you can't play. What's
Yeah.
that like mentally, knowing you can't contribute to the guys that you've all, and we're going to talk about this next, is the preseason joint suffering,
Yeah.
what you all go through there, and you just want to give. What's it like to sit on that bed or that couch and say, I can't help?
I tell you what, it is the most helpless feeling you're ever gonna have. And you just have to look at it as you have to attack your rehab and give every
Mm.
single thing that you can. I remember doing this exercise in rehab. I wanted to get back on the field, Jeff. Like I wanted my next breath. Like you wouldn't like. And I remember for one of the home games dressing, and I had my leg taped up and it had this big bandage on it. I was getting all these injections and all this nonsense. And I remember Coach Hazel said, just go out there and warm ups and see what you can do. And I was basically limping on one leg. And I was just limping through warm ups. And I gave it everything I had. He's like, you're not ready. He's like, we can't do it. And just having to sit out, it's the worst feeling in the world. But I remember being so dedicated, cold tubs, hot tubs, stim, stretch, all the stuff, right? And I was doing one of these exercises in the training room, and it was basically like a one-legged race where I was kind of pulling this weight. And I had to go against one of the trainers. And I remember just like dripping sweat trying to pull this weight. And the trainer is basically like lapping me. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm dripping. I'm trying to get to the finish line. I'm really working my hamstring. I'm engaging my core. I'm doing all this stuff. And I took this thing off my leg. And then the head athletic trainer was just laughing at me. And he goes, pick this weight up. And I picked the weight that the other trainer had, and it was fake. It wasn't a real thing. So he was just kind of going through it. And he was like, hey, we're just kind of, he was like, dude, we're testing your sort of your mental behavior, how you're going to attack.
Grit.
Well, yeah. And he's like, you dripping sweat and not giving up and being super competitive and basically crawling on your hands and knees to beat this guy tells me everything I need to know. He's like, you're going to be fine. Like, but you have to have this mindset of, when you practice to get better, right? And it's progress over perfection. And when you're doing rehab, you just got to get yourself better, and you got to do everything you can not to have that feeling of helplessness and sitting on the sidelines.
So hard. It's your
Oh,
identity at that point, it's everything, you know?
100%.
So let's talk about the joint suffering.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't know how tough of a coach Terry Shea was, because he was, from back in the day. But Schiano's reputation of a tough coach, it still precedes him today.
Yep.
So can you tell the audience what a preseason was like for you under Schiano's first regime, and what did you have to do? How long did it last? How intense was it?
Oh, it was eye-opening. So it starts you do what's called winter ball. And winter ball is essentially just a series of challenging workouts and, exercises on the field that get you ready for the next season. Winter ball, my first winter ball with Schiano, winter ball starts at 5:30 a.m. and you have to be dressed in your gear in the practice facility at 5:30 before school starts, before anything. Anyone who's ever had a winter in Jersey knows that it's cold, it's gray, it's dark, and I remember getting to the practice bubble at 5:30, being in my grays, and Schiano was just shot out of a cannon. He is ready to go. He's ready to compete. He's screaming in your face. And these aren't like these aren't padded practice. These are just drills.
Yeah.
And just the level of competition from day one, from that winter ball, his first year, he was like, it's time. This is different. Let's go. Competed right after winter ball. You posted in the locker room, your ranking, where you ranked amongst people in your position. How'd you finish in the sprints? Where were you in terms of the competition? How'd you like every single thing with Coach Schiano was a competition. And I remember, and like this is something I take to me to this day. You and I talked about this a little bit before, how transferable some of these skills are. I remember being a 20-year-old kid and talking to Schiano one day, and I give him credit, and I love Greg for this kind of stuff. And I remember saying how hard it was to wake up in the morning. And I would hit the snooze button, and I'd make sure I was in the bubble just in time for practice. but I'd hit the snooze button probably 3 or 4 times to get me there. And he told me, and I'll never forget this, Jeff. He was like, when you hit the snooze button, you lose the first battle of the day and you set your day up for compromise. Instead of hitting the
Wow.
snooze button, I want you to just attack, put your feet on the ground and attack the day. To this day, Jeff, I am at my gym. My gym opens at 4 o'clock. I'm at my gym at 4:30, 5 days a week.
Really?
I can't sleep in anymore because he just conditioned me to be this morning crazy person who just gets up, attacks the day. First thing I do is go for a run or go to my gym. And I hear him in my voice to this day, like, just attack the day. Alarms, I don't even have to set an alarm. Tomorrow morning, I'll be up at 4:30. I'll be at the gym.
Okay, so we're going to go deep on that one right now.
Go.
That's called post-traumatic stress, right? So, years ago, my preseason, same thing, show up in August. You have, 3 sessions a day, 21 straight days, craziness, right?
Yep.
And the fear of being late was just
Yep.
intense.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, I'm an old guy, and I don't remember. I set my alarm every night,
Yep.
and it never goes off because I am up way before it goes
That's
off.
right.
And I wake up, and this is crazy. People are like, why? What's wrong with you? Probably 5, 6 times a night. And I'm like, what time is it? And I look over at the clock. I'm like, oh, I'm good. Another an hour later. What time is it? Okay, okay. I can't. It's in me.
Yeah,
The fear of oversleeping is post-traumatic stress.
that's right.
Do you deal with that too?
Yeah, 100%. And by the way, you couldn't find college players, at least when I played. There's no money. So if you were ever late to a meeting or to a practice,
Oh, look out.
you think you are running the next morning until everything inside your stomach is
It's
up.
coming out. Yep.
It's all coming up, right? And so it only takes 1 or 2 punishment runs for you to know not to be late to anything. Even
Yeah.
now, in the business world, I'm 5 minutes early to everything
Yeah.
just because you talk about that PTSD. Like,
Yeah.
I just remember, man, I did, we don't have to talk about, but I did one punishment run where I had this weighted vest and I had to run every single set of stairs in Rutgers Stadium.
Ugh.
I had to do it with an offensive lineman. So the offensive lineman was a little bit slower than me. So I just wanted to finish as quickly as I can. And so I finished and I took the weighted vest off. It was a 30-pound vest and I couldn't stand up. My knees were weak. And this offensive lineman, he was about halfway through. And I was like, I'm going to get a shower. And the coach said, my strength coach said, you guys are on the same team. That's your teammate. He's not finished running. You're not finished running. Put that vest on and you're running sprints until he's done. And I remember for an extra, Jeff, it had to be 20, 30 minutes, me running 110-yard sprints with this weight vest on. Every time I would stop to run a sprint, I'd look at the stands and I would yell and curse at this offensive lineman, you better 4-letter word, get your blah, blah, like,
hurry it up.
Another sprint. But I say all that to say, that kind of stuff taught me never to be late for anything, man.
Yeah.
Talking PTSD, like, I am always early for everything.
But you know what? It's a PTSD that we want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm okay with that. And what that kind of like suffering, is it really suffering? Is I don't mean to belittle PTSD for the veterans and the military. Like that's completely different.
Sure.
But that's where it comes from. How about nightmares? You have any nightmares?
Yeah, so not so much nightmares. I think I'm a pretty sound sleeper, but if you wake me up, if you try to touch me or wake me up, or my wife or my kids, if I'm like, what's going on? What I miss? I'm always on edge.
Right. So you don't have any dreams like you go into your locker and their shoes are missing,
No,
or out on the field and like you can't find your helmet?
I can't say that I do.
No? Oh
No.
my God, I have that all the time. The other dream I have is I show up to practice and it's over. I missed it.
Oh my good. That's horrifying.
Oh my God. So let me ask you this. Being a college athlete, it's 5% or less of the country's high school athletes ever become a college athlete. Then it's even less to go on to the professional level, right? But what do you think being a college athlete, that whole experience has done for you to make you who you are today as a man, as a husband, as a father, as a professional?
Yeah, that's such a good question. There are so many things that I do in my life that I hear Coach Schiano or Coach Hazel it's just something that they taught me, right? And One of the big things at Rutgers when I was there, especially under Coach Schiano, was do your 111th. It basically means just do your job, right? Do your job, your 111th. If you're running a route and you're wide open and the quarterback overthrows you by a country mile, don't go back to the huddle and yell and scream at the quarterback. Just do your job. Just do your job, right? Next play, do your job. And when I think of like doing the 111th, I always thought about how I needed to be accountable to like my teammates by being the best version of me. It's the same thing, being a husband, being a father, being an employee, having a career. Like I got to be the best version of me. I got to show up and I got to do my job. I got to be the best version of me day in and day out basis. What does that mean? I have to take care of myself physically, mentally, spiritually. I've got to be grounded. I've got to keep the main thing and focus on the main thing. Those kind of these kind of like attributes that I was taught, it all comes from sports.
Yeah.
I always kind of have a pretty high EQ, and I can tell the people that, and I hire people too in my role. I hire people, I train people. I look for people on their resumes that have an athletic background
Yeah.
because I know some of these traits and some of these skills you can only learn by being forged through the fire. I was super lucky to have someone like Greg Schiano and Coach Shea who taught me like a lot of these lifelong lessons. Half of them didn't have anything to do with football, right? Like it's just things that like I know how to do now because I went through that process. And anytime I interview a young kid who's an athlete just out of college, like I know they went through a similar process and we bond over that. And I know they have a skill set that like it's really hard to teach.
Yeah.
Right. And so I always kind of look out for that when I'm looking at resumes.
Yeah. You know, the life lessons you learn as an athlete that carries forward into the traditional world, for lack of better words, you know, it makes the world look easier, right?
Yeah.
Like you're sitting there in preseason football, the world doesn't understand what you went through there.
Yeah.
It might be a little easier today because the rules have changed a little bit. If I go back to when I was doing it, forget it. And then when your dad was doing it, it was
Oh, yeah.
probably total
Yeah.
torture,
Yeah.
you know. But that suffering throughout those years is the greatest foundational, you know, greatest foundation for you for your life going forward.
Yeah.
Because if you can do that, you can do anything.
Yeah.
Would you agree
So
with that?
100%. So I played some really great players that names that if I say you'd recognize, right? Hall of Famers, great, played Miami when it was still the U. So I played against the Antrell Rolls and the Sean Taylors of the world and, Michael Vicks, we played VTech. And I think about like in business, just how competitive things are.
Yeah.
And I always think about just kind of going back to my days at Rutgers, the day after a game, you would have to go into this treatment, the health center and get treatment and get all this kind of stuff. And then you would watch film and then you would get your scouting report on the competition. When I tell you right now, when I'm in sort of competitive deals in the business world, how much scouting I do of my competition, it is, and that is
Yeah.
directly related to how I was on the football field. Like I want to know the competition. I want to know what they're doing. I want to understand pricing or all this kind of stuff. Like I want to be well-rounded and fully educated on my opponent, just like I was in college
Yeah.
football. That kind of stuff conditioned you. I mean, back then you would get a binder and it would have all the positions and the guys,
Yeah.
what they do, what they didn't do. And then you would watch game film and you'd watch their tendencies on game film and really burn in your memory how you can overcome what they're throwing at you. It's the same
Yeah.
thing in business and life.
Yeah. So Rutgers football, what's your most memorable moment?
There are so many great ones. I'll take you to a couple. I'll take you to one, playing Miami-Dade County. They were number one team in the country.
Who was the
And
quarterback back then for them? You
probably
remember?
Dorsey. It might have been Dorsey.
Okay. And he came and played for you guys. Dorsey
Yes,
later on. Yeah.
that's right. That's right. And they were number one in the country. And I think the papers that week had us as 49.5 point dogs, something crazy, something that we took a great amount of just like we were just insulted by. Well, I won't bury the, they ended up covering. I think they beat us like 63-3 or something. It was crazy. The last play of the game on offense, I was running a post route and I tripped up the defender and I was wide open. And this is Miami. This was Dade County, Pack Stadium. And Jeff, when I tell you, I had visions in my mind of scoring a touchdown and throwing the ball into the stands and just go. I wanted to get all kind of penalties, right? I was going to shove this down their throat. And I was wide open, just me in the end zone, no one in front of me. And the quarterback overthrew me by a mile. And I remember just diving for the ball, just trying to get a fingertip on it. And the ball was out of the back of the end zone. And I dove, almost hit the goalpost, right? Didn't catch it, nothing. I remember after the game being super dejected and walking onto the bus. And we had this tutor that tutored the team on away trips. And he pulled me up before I got on the bus. He pulled me right aside and he said, I saw the greatest play I've seen in college football. I was like, what's one of the 80 million touchdowns they scored did you like? And he goes, no. He goes, that last play when you're on offense and the effort that you put in to try to catch the ball. And I remember him saying that, and I was like, it almost like it made me see like the game in a totally different light. Like I was always competitive, but I didn't realize how much my competitive spirit like translated to like fans or people watching. So that was one memory. And then one of the best memories, a good memory, we beat Navy at our place and I scored, and it was like a 92-yard touchdown. And I ran a post route, and it was one of those plays that happened just like you drew it up. We practiced this. We ran it in practice a bunch of times. The defender liked to play a little bit on the outside. I won't get too technical. All I had to do was kind of step across his face, and the ball was going to hit me right in the hands. Well, we ran the play, backed up deep in our own end zone, and just like we drew it up, the defender was exactly where he was going to be. I crossed his face. I caught it. I went 92 yards for a touchdown. And I remember getting on the sidelines and the phone rang and I picked up the phone and it was our offensive coordinator in the booth. And he goes, exactly like we drew it up. Nice job, kid. And I just remember like that was I think it was like number 6 or 7 in one of the longest plays in Rutgers history.
Do you think it still stands as the longest?
No, I might be in the top 10, but I know we had
There's not many more yards it could be if it was anyone's a
yeah,
longer, right?
yeah, it was like 92 yards. Yeah.
That's awesome. And you know what's funny is no matter how many years go by, you forget some plays, you forget some games until somebody brings it up, and then it's like you were right back there.
Yeah.
You know, you can smell the grass or the turf. You can smell the air. You can hear the band. You can hear the crowd. You can feel it, right?
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
it's just like the emotions just start flying.
Yeah. I get chills now when you and I are just talking about
Yeah.
it.
Oh, it's so cool. So what advice, Aaron, you know, you come from a football family.
Yeah.
You went to a big time high school. You went to a big time football program. What advice can you give to the young men today with all the craziness that's going on? Recruiting today is nuts. NIL is nuts. It's 1 year out here, the next year I'm transferring there. What can you tell these young men today about preparing for that journey into the college football world?
Yeah, the one thing I'll say to young guys that have all these distractions, and like you said, NIL money is, man, I wish it was around when I played, man. It would have, it's crazy. But the one thing I would say is do it because you love it. Do it because it's your passion, right? Don't worry about the money. Don't worry about the fame. Don't worry about all the accolades. If it's meant to be, all that stuff will come. But if you love the game, you will not regret a second of it, right? So do it because you love it and really follow your passion. To me, even growing up as a kid, and my dad will tell you the same thing, right? He made a career out of it. He had a great career, Giants Ring of Fame, all the accolades. But he would tell you if he was sitting here, he played a kid's game as most of his adult life because he just loved it, right?
Yeah.
And it didn't matter what the Mara family was paying him. He just loved the game, right? And so that'll take you a long way. So I know kids coming out now, they have a million and one things to think about, but always draw yourself back to the love of the game because that's why you started in the first place. Things get complicated when you start talking about NIL deals and transfer portals and this coach left and I got to go to this. But if you keep the love of the game at the center of what you do, you're going to make a lot of good decisions. And I know there's a lot of distractions out there for the young athletes. And
Yeah.
sometimes I envy them, and sometimes I'm like, man, this would have been really tough to navigate if I was a, 19-year-old, 18, 19-year-old
Yeah.
kid, right? So do it for the love of the game. And then, the next thing I'll say, and it's super important, it served me well in my life in college. We talked about it a little bit earlier, and in my professional life, find mentors, find guys that you can lean on, find guys that have done it before, find guys that have something in common with you or have something that you admire, and lean on them and ask them questions, ask them how to navigate these things. Don't feel like you're in it alone. I told you the story of Coach Hazel just checking in on me when I was injured, and I was just reading this story, Jeff, the other day about this draft pick who got this vehicular manslaughter charge. I don't know if you read about this kid. He's from LSU, and he killed someone, and then he ended up killing himself. And this was a couple
Yeah.
weeks before the draft.
Yeah.
And I was reading what his dad said, and his dad said it's so important just to check in on your kids. Find someone in your life who checks in on you, just like Coach Hazel did with me, saying, "Are you okay?" Find that mentor. Find someone who can lean on. You can lean on, and it just is in it for anything. Just checks in on you, because that's really important. Because these times, things get challenging and complicated sometimes.
Yeah. Aaron, man, what you said is so important. The mental stress these kids go through, and many of these young men and women, their parents have no idea what's going on. They get dropped off in the middle of nowhere, have at it. They don't see them until the next couple of weeks or months. And some kids don't see their parents for maybe months at a time.
Yeah.
They're under tremendous stress, in the athletic world. They got to perform in the classroom just to stay eligible.
Yeah.
But that mental stress, some of these kids don't know where to go. And it's so true that I love what you said, find someone that'll check in on you.
Yeah.
And you know what that means? That means that person really cares. And for all these years later, to keep giving the props to your coaches for how they led you, coached you, checked in on you. I mean, that's what coaches are supposed to do. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And in today's world, it's tough for those coaches to do that because there's so much pressure on them.
Yeah.
You know, that's awesome. So let me ask you and your pressure is how, and you were a good student.
Yeah.
How the heck did you balance that? Most guys can't. Most guys squeak by and do well in football. You did well in football and the classroom. Then you go on to get your master's degree, which is awesome. How did you balance all of that pressure?
Yeah, it was really my parents, they really, my father was like, my mother and father both put really emphasis on education. So my dad went to the University of Oregon, and when he played for the Giants, he didn't finish his degree. So he went back kind of midway through his career to Fairleigh Dickinson University because he was playing for the Giants, and that was literally down the street from the Meadowlands. And he completed his degree, but he didn't just complete his degree. He then took some of his teammates back with him next semester to complete their degree. Then he started taking coaches and front office staff to complete their degree. Then he started taking some New York Jets with him to complete their degree. Then the NFL got wind of it, and now all 32 teams have a degree completion program that my father started. And
Wow.
that's one of his big legacies in NFL circles. My parents were always like, at some point, sports are going to end. It could be, you could have a 14-year
Yeah.
career, could be college, could be, doesn't matter. Always hang your hat on getting your college degree. Like, it was super important to them. And because it was important to them and they invested so much into me growing up, it was important to me. And like you said earlier, playing football or playing Division I sports, it's a really hard thing to do. Everything else by comparison doesn't seem that hard. And one of the things that Coach Schiano told me, when you go to Rutgers and you go to class, there's some of these big classrooms, these big halls, sit in the first three rows, be engaged, ask questions, show up early, stay the whole time, hand your work out on time. Jeff, doing these little things get you better grades just
Yeah.
by, you're just going to stand
Showing
out.
up.
Yeah, it's showing up, it's being engaged. I would always sit in the middle in the first rows, ask questions. those are the things that helped me get my degree. Yeah, you and I could talk about like the glory days and the touchdowns and all this stuff. Stuff's great, but like, man, having a degree it definitely set me up for life, and
Yeah.
really super proud of that.
So what was the motivation for the master's degree?
Yeah, so I kind of had, after Rutgers, I had a couple opportunities to play pro. Didn't make the teams, but I had contracts from Philadelphia Eagles, which was the minimum at the time, and then the Cowboys. So I ended up going to Dallas for a couple of months, playing there. Didn't make the 53, and then came back and kind of didn't know what I wanted to do. So the first thing I did was like, let me just get back in school. Let me just start to learn a little bit more about the business world, figure out what I wanted to do. I think one of the things that's really challenging for college athletes is not knowing what the next step is going to be. And that's just more broadly speaking for just students in college in general, right? But for college athletes specifically, you go through this structured routine, you go through the structure of having your meetings scheduled and your meals and where you need to be and all this kind of stuff to suddenly one day it's nothing. So it's tough to really find your footing in what you want to be. I was no different, right? And so when football was done for me, the first thing I said is, why I figure this out? Let me just go back to school, right? Let me just continue learning. And that's what I did. And it helped kind of set me up and put me in a better mind frame because it gave me this runway of like, while I'm figuring it out, let me just continue to learn.
Yeah.
And again, just like I did at Rutgers, at Fairleigh Dickinson, sat in the front row, asked questions. I was Dean's List, high honors guy. Like, but it was just because I did all those little things. But if I
Yeah.
could give advice to like any of the young kids coming up, if you don't know what you're going to do, that's okay. Your education can take you a long way. So stay engaged with school for as long as you can as you're figuring stuff out. But yeah, it's always a tough transition. Not a lot of people do it seamlessly or do it very well. You kind of, as you're a young kid, you kind of have to learn things, and it's trial and error for sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I tell you, you did all the right, you did all the little things right,
Yeah.
you know. So let's talk about that. You mentioned Cowboys, Eagles, which we, I'm a Cowboys fan, by the way.
Okay.
And you didn't make it.
Yeah.
How many guys in this world even get a shot at that, let alone making it, right? What was it like when you took that helmet off for the last time and you knew that was it?
Yeah. It was, it was sad. There was a lot of tears.
Yeah.
I'm not ashamed to admit it. There was a lot of tears, right? When you're 20 something, you think you could just play forever.
Yeah.
And when the higher you climb, the harder it is to breathe. And going from elite high school where you're standout to D1 college, it's another level. And then going from there to the pros, my goodness, it is just another level in and of itself. And you still think you got another shot, you got another shot, you got another
Yeah.
shot. My agent at the time, I think he wanted me to go to Arena or Europe. He had some things there, but to me, I kind of knew it was over. And taking the helmet off for the last time, there was a good probably 2 or 3 weeks where I was just depressed. I just no other way to. I was depressed. I was sleeping a lot. I wasn't getting off the couch. And I remember my dad talking to me very lovingly. One day he came home. I was living at my parents' house. He came home and he said, "Hey man, you're not the star athlete now. You're just another guy. So as being just
Oh,
another
that's
guy,
painful to
it's
hear.
painful. I say it now with a smile on my face, but he's like, just being just another guy, like you got to figure some things out. You got to figure out how to put a roof over your head and how you're going to have money in your pocket and how you're going to do the things you, and I was like, and it was like a light bulb moment. I was like, you know what? You're right. Like, all right, let me dust myself off. I saw the dean that afternoon at Fairleigh Dickinson. He enrolled me in classes. The rest is history, but it took someone like that just being like, and again, I had to sit on the couch. I had to go through my little thing for a couple of weeks,
Yeah.
but it took someone like that, again, someone who checks in on you, someone who knows you, just being like, "Hey man, you're just another guy. You're
Yeah.
better than this. Let's do something."
But Aaron, you were fortunate to have a dad or a mom
Yeah,
who checked in
yeah,
and kind of gave you that little, okay, let's
yeah,
go. where there's so many guys who don't have that. And
Yeah.
they'll sit on that couch. And if your dad wasn't around or your mom wasn't around, you may have stayed on that couch a little bit too long,
Yeah.
and that you were very fortunate. So what advice can you give to the young guy or girl who's transitioning out of sports and what to be prepared for when that last day comes?
Yeah, that's a great question. I got to go back to having a mentor, right? Like having someone in your corner who can guide you, who can show you the way, who can get you to another level, right? Like that is super important. That last day is going to come for all of you. And I know, and Jeff, I've gone back to Rutgers, I've talked to kids. They don't understand that that last day is going to come. Like
Yeah.
you just think you're going to play forever, but that last day is going to come for everybody. The more prepared you could be in advance, the better off you are. I want
Yeah.
every college athlete, high school athlete to chase their dreams all up and down, man. I'm never going to be the one to tell them they can't do something. Like, if you want to chase that pro dream, chase it, even if you have the longest career in the world. I mean, LeBron James is going on 20 some odd years. LeBron James' days are numbered as a player, right? Like, you got to figure out how to transition. Find a good support system and people around you that can help you get there. You
Yeah.
mentioned I had parents, George and Diane Martin, the greatest. I couldn't pick better parents out of anyone in the world. But you got to, if you don't have those parents, if you don't have those friends, find a mentor, find someone in the business world you admire, and take some time, write them a note, send them an email, give them a call,
Yeah.
ask them if they could shepherd you through the next stage in your life. I've been a mentee, I've been a mentor. I could tell you anytime a kid reaches out from Rutgers or otherwise, text, DM, I'm always willing to give up my time. And that is something that my parents instilled in me at a very young age. Everyone will ask me, hey, do you remember what was it like with your dad playing at the Giants, Super Bowls, and all this kind of stuff? Like, my honest opinion is, Jeff, yeah, I remember the games, and I could tell you, being in the locker room and Coach Parcells telling me when I was, 6 years old, he wants to be the only fat guy in the locker room, so I can eat all the donuts that the rookies bring in, and what it was like going to the Super Bowl and all that kind of stuff. I can tell you all those stories, but really, what I remember most about my parents is my dad's off days, being with my mom. They would go to juvenile detention centers, prisons,
Really?
churches, all the time, all day long. We'll do giant reunion shows now, and people that are grown-ups will come up to me and say, hey, man, your dad came. He visited me when I was in the hospital, or I was in a bad spot. He came to this detention center, this prison, and he helped turn my life around. I say all that to say, for kids that are transitioning or looking to get out of college sports and do the next thing, find a mentor, someone like Jeff. You said you talk to kids. I could see it. Like, find someone who's willing to give you their time and show
Yeah.
you the way. I remember my parents doing that a lot, and that really left like a lasting mark on me for sure.
That is so cool. So here's another question, which is we're getting kind of deep, which is good. You know, is our identity as an athlete, like you said, it ends. How did you redefine your identity when that athletic part of your life was over?
Yeah, that's a great call. So one of the first things I did was, all the school stuff aside, when I started getting to the working world, I got back into community involved organizations. I just kind of put all this into a funnel, all the things that coaches poured into me and mentors and friends. And I felt this real civic responsibility and this duty just to give back. So I started serving on boards of nonprofits. I started nonprofits. I did a lot of things in the community. One of the things I'm most proud of is, I started a mentoring organization called the Newark Mentoring Movement out of Newark, New Jersey. I worked on the youth policy board in Newark, New Jersey for a number of years. That organization, even though I'm in Houston, Texas, that organization is still going strong to this day. And I say all that to say, I kind of felt just this like duty to just give back, because I felt like for me to be a college athlete and for me to transition out of college athletics to the business world, so many people poured so much into me. The least I could do is pay it forward. And so
Yes.
I wanted to find something that gave me that same sort of feeling of connectivity to the team, to the community. And that's one of the things I started doing. Another thing I started doing, and I've been doing it for a while, is I've gotten to sales. Right? Sales is super competitive. It's just like sports,
Yeah.
right? And I'm, as you can tell from talking to me for an hour or so now, I'm not the brightest bulb. I'm as dumb as a bottle of beer, but I could just
I don't know
use
about that.
but I can use all my work ethic and just the creativity and the team sort of building aspect of it and just be in sales. And so that helps to scratch that competitive itch for sure.
That's so cool. So what do you miss the most? Sports is over. What do you miss the most?
Being in the locker room.
Oh yeah, I knew you were
Um,
gonna say that. I knew
yeah,
it.
yeah. It's one of those things, man. There are so many things that go on in a locker room that just build camaraderie, right? One of the things we would do at Rutgers is
Dance. You guys are always dancing in that locker room.
we danced a lot in the locker room. So you had to be a pretty solid DJ to get control of the music, right?
Yep.
We danced a lot in the locker room, but everything was competitive.
Yeah.
Like even like dancing, like
Yeah.
all that stuff, you compete, and through all that competitive nature of just being with the same group of guys, you develop a bond. And it's
Yeah.
a bond. Like I still talk to guys to this day that I played with at Rutgers. And it's because you just develop this camaraderie. So being in that locker room and everyone tells jokes about each other, some play
Yeah.
that you messed up on during the game, or man, you watch something in film and everyone's teasing you when you did something wrong, or you did something good and they're blowing you
Yeah.
up, right? You walk down College Ave and they're pointing, hey, did you see Aaron did like that? Like you miss those kind of things
Yeah.
in the locker room. So being around the guys, you miss it.
Yeah. The locker room, the plane rides,
Yep.
the hotel stays,
Yep.
you know, the parties after the wins,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
just like you just can't explain it. But let me
Yep.
ask you this.
Yeah.
How do you explain how you feel when you're out on the field and you're in the heat of the moment? Can you explain how you're feeling?
Yeah, so it's so funny. I was just there was this grass field I went to the other day, and I was telling my wife, I was walking my wife around this field. I was like, it's a weird smell and an energy on a grass football field. I
Yeah.
can't explain it. Like
Yeah.
it's a smell, it's a feeling, and when you are on that field in the middle of it, it starts, I was one of those guys that I would get the first thing I do when I got to a stadium, I would always change in my sweats and I just go on the field. And
Yeah.
I would just start feeling the grass and feel just jogging and like start going through routes. And then you slowly build up, and then I go back and I take a shower and then I come back out in my uniform. But when the music is going and the stadium is starting to fill up with fans and you start to see VIPs on the sideline and you're looking across at the other team and they're warming up, it is almost like it's almost like you're a different person. You get
Yeah.
locked in. You really
Yeah.
are a different person, and you just start to lock in.
Yeah.
And before you come out and you're sitting in the tunnel and you see Coach Schiano ahead of you and all the smoke is going and are you ready and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
running out of that tunnel, it is you can't explain. There's nothing in the world that
Yeah.
can, no
But
drugs,
like
nothing.
you just said it. You
Yeah.
can't explain it.
Yeah.
But I put this word to it. It's euphoric.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I try to explain to people like, oh, when you were out there, I'm like, you just feel like you're in another world,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like a drug.
Yeah.
It's addicting. And I asked this question like a lot of the guests, I'm like, can you explain it? And most guys like they have a hard time explaining it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is so cool. Other athletes, I don't care what court, what field, whatever, everybody knows what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But you can't explain it.
You can. Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So what's next for you? I mean, you're a young guy. You're married. How many kids you have?
I have two daughters,
How old
15
are
and
they?
12. 15 and 12.
15 and 12.
Yeah.
So what's next for you? What's going on in your world professionally? Where do you see yourself going? What's happening?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So right now, I think I work hard, play hard, but I pour every available second that I have, every available dollar that I have into my children, right? So they're starting to now get, bit by the athletic bug. And, my 15-year-old, she is really into basketball. So every weekend, we're traveling, we're doing the AAU circuit. So we're in Louisville, Florida, New Orleans, you name it. But it's great to see her going through what I went through as a kid, right? Like it was around this time too, I started to get bit by the bug, and you just see like there's just it's like a flip of a switch, and it's everything is basketball with her. So
Yeah.
bringing her through it, and I still go out with her and we hoop and we play, we do one-on-one and all this kind of
Did
stuff.
she take you?
No, not yet. But there's gonna be a day. There's gonna be a day where I'm too old and she gets me. But it's one of those things where between her and my youngest daughter, who again is starting to get bit by the athletic bug, it's like I love Jeff. That is the best feeling in the world, seeing them do some things on the court, and when the crowd goes, oh, like when they, my daughter blocks a shot or hits a
Yeah.
three, and the crowd's like, and like I can imagine how my parents felt when I was
Oh,
doing it.
yeah.
So that's great. And then, professionally, I lead a sales team. I'm in sales. I'm in the financial tech space. And being a sales leader and having a team of young guys, I just try to be one of those coaches that I admire. I take a little Schiano, I take a little Shea, I take a little this, a little that, and try to get them to be high performers, and just developing teams and performing at a high level and just building a culture, right? I can remember coming in when Schiano first came in, everything changed, right? The logo, it was this night with Rutgers. Then now he just put the big R
Rock on.
there.
Yep.
Yeah, and there was billboards in the turnpike, and he put his stamp on everything from the culture in the locker room to how we do drills, how we compete, and he really turned things around. So in my professional life, I run sales teams, and I like to just be that culture builder, right? Hey, we're going to do things the right way. We're going to be accountable. I like to take the things that I learned in college and like implement them in the business world, and they're really effective. So that's kind of where I am.
Well, I'm hoping you think this is a good thing.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're becoming a hands-on father like your dad.
Big shoes to fill for sure, but yeah, he taught me everything I know about being a father and being a man and being a
Yeah.
husband. There's so much he taught me
Well,
about.
well, you said before, I don't know, I don't think we were live yet, but you said your dad was there for everything.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're there for everything.
Yeah.
And I think children learn either what to do as a parent or what not to do as a parent from their parents,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So it sounds like you took all the good things.
I hope so. But it wasn't just every football game, right? Like every home and away game in college, but it was basketball, football, track, soccer,
Yeah.
gymnastics, you name it. Me and my brothers did it, and my parents were always there. Like they were always supportive.
And he kept checking in.
Kept checking in, kept checking in, and he's still competitive. So, even my daughter to this day,
Yeah.
she said something to him the other day about she wanted a pair of Jordans. And my dad says, oh, yeah, when my son asked for shoes, I used to buy him 3 shoes every season. I was like, and I told my daughter, I was like, he didn't buy me that many shoes every season. Like I had to earn but he's still very competitive. I still see my parents. They're out in Carolina now, but they come to Houston every now and then. And
Yep.
my dad and I will go work out. He
He's
was
still in good shape.
he's in phenomenal shape. I think he's 72 now, but you wouldn't know it if you sat and talked to him. He does media and podcasts and stuff, but he's one of those guys just like me. Whenever I hang out with him, I could be on vacation, he could be here. We're both at the gym at 5 in the morning. We go with each other. Still lifts a ton.
Can you
Uh,
outbench him?
no, I mean he was a defensive end. He was a big guy. And then we'll go shoot hoops. And then my mom is super athletic too. She still plays tennis to this day, and it's one of those things, man, where you know they figured it out, right?
Yeah.
My dad grew up in the Jim Crow South. My mom was a Native American Choctaw Indian. They couldn't imagine having the life that they had, and just through just hard work and sticking together, man, they've got it. They figured it out.
That's awesome. It's it's the foundation of what sports can do for you
Yeah.
if you do it the right way. And it sounds like your mom and your dad and you and your brother. Any sisters or just you and your brother?
I got two older brothers and an older sister.
Oh my God. All right. Well, it sounds like you all have done it the right way, and it shows. And it oozes out of you. I don't know if you know that, if anyone's ever told you that, but it when you talk about your family, it oozes out of you, which is awesome.
Thank you.
So Aaron, we talked about a ton of stuff, and we were in high school, out of high school, Rutgers, in Rutgers, out of Rutgers, all cool stuff. Is there anything we didn't touch on you think we should hit before we wrap it up?
One thing I'll say is go RU. I want to see our guys, our football team, keep the homegrown Jersey talent in Jersey. So these blue chip guys, these five-star recruits, look no further than Rutgers. It's something special there. When Rutgers football is at its peak, it is New Jersey, New York. It is the best place in the world to be. So we gotta keep our guys in New
Yeah.
Jersey.
Gotta keep them.
Yeah.
Well, Aaron, thanks for being on the show. This has been awesome. Love having you. Got to get you back on here again soon. And next time you're up here in Jersey, we got to connect.
Jeff, man, this was such a pleasure. It's great meeting, great getting to know you, and thank you so much for having me. Anytime, we'll bring Dad on here. He'll tell you some of his
Oh
old
yeah,
memories too.
I would love that.
Awesome. Thanks,
Go
Jeff.
are you?
You got it. Thanks, buddy.